Hey guys, it's Amber Rain Davis from NotableInk.com. Welcome back to my channel. I am with the Hedgehog Hollow today with a project using both the August and September subscription box. So a couple stands from each of those. I'm using the feathers as leaves from the September box and one of the beautiful, it looks like a peony from the Alex Siberia collaboration box from August. As always, all of the supplies will be listed below. If you haven't subscribed already, go ahead and do that and we'll get started. I have a piece of Saunders Waterford High White Rough watercolor paper here. I've treated it with anti-static powder, and I'm going to use a couple of the different feathers. This is from the background feather stamp set included in the subscription box, and I'm going to white heat emboss those. So I didn't bother masking any of the feathers because I knew that I was going to put the flower on top of them in the areas where they intersect. And even if they were a little overlapping, I didn't think that that was going to make too much of an impact in the final design of the card. So I'm going to go ahead and heat set those with my heat tool, and then we'll go ahead and start painting. I'm going to use the Altenew 36 pan watercolor set today, and the color that I'm using now is called Caribbean Sky. This one is a little less transparent. It's a little more almost like a gouache. It has more of that opaque quality to it, and I wanted a really light background. And don't get too attached to this color because after I color the flower, I felt like this really cool blue didn't go as well with the color of the flower. So I end up adding some teal to this background. So the color of this background is going to completely change. But I did want to show it to you in case you wanted to create this background. So when you have white embossed feathers or leaves like this, you know, you're really going to need color on the paper around it to get those to show up and be visible. So I used a little bit of the Caribbean Sky, then I added in a bit of Industrial Diamond, which is a gray color, to darken that up a little bit. I'm going to heat set it. You can see that it really dries back. And then I decided to add a little bit of green, which I didn't like at all. It started to look muddy. Honestly, because that Caribbean Sky is a little more purple than anything else. And then I went and added a yellow green to it. So it started to get almost like a grayish brownish haze or a sepia haze to it. So I wasn't a big fan of that. So I dried that. And you can see it here. It just kind of starts to look dirty. And then I decided to add some dusk to it. So this is a more brighter blue. It's a dark blue, but it has higher saturation to it. It has less gray in it. So I'm going to add a little Caribbean Sky to that. And this is kind of just what I do when I create a background. You know, if I don't have a real solid plan, then I'll just play around with the colors. And, you know, now I'm adding a little bit of purple to that to cool it off a little bit. And then I'm just going to add that. And then with the darker color around these feathers, you're going to start to see them more clearly. And then I'll just add water to the outer edges of the background just to get that, you know, pigment to bleed out and feather out into the edges so that I didn't really want any sharp edges per se at this point. So I'll set that aside to dry, and then I went ahead and stamped one of the flowers from the August kit onto the same kind of watercolor paper, and I'm just heat setting that with pure white embossing powder from Altenew. And then I don't know what I was thinking. I mean, I think I just like teal, so it's what I go for pretty much all the time. So I start off adding a little bit of a teal color to this flower. Then I realized that's not going to show up on my background at all, and so I switched gears and changed to a pink flower. So I still kept that as an underpainting and just made sure it was dry. And then I came in with Rubellite. This is a super vibrant color. I love this color. So I think I end up using a combination of some pink diamond and Rubellite in this flower. And I actually did these steps. So you can see I started off with a watered down Rubellite, and then I decided to go just straight from the pan. I wanted it to be a super vibrant flower. And once I dried this with the heat tool, it dried back significantly. So you can see that here. And so I came back in with almost full strength rubellite about 3 or 4 times to get a really super bright saturation, because every time it dried back like watercolors do. So I just kept building up the color as much as I wanted to get it to that super saturated and vibrant color that I wanted. And what's nice about that is it kind of adds kind of some hard edges to it, which I think is pretty cool. So here I decided that vibrant pink flower didn't really go with this purplish background, so I switched it up to teal. So what I added was mountain mist to the background, and I did a watered down version, and then also came in with straight from the pan and just kind of watered out the edges. And then I'm just going to add some splatter to it, and then we'll go ahead and completely dry the panel. Make sure it's completely dry before you go in with your sentiment. So I'm just going to grab a sentiment from one of the September stamp sets included in the subscription box. This one says "You Do You," and it's such a fine script. I used a pigment ink to make sure that I got a really good stamping with it. And with just that black sentiment, I felt like the card needed more black on it. So we're going super high contrast here. I have some Nuvo drops that I went ahead and kind of put on a craft mat and dried previously, because I get too nervous to just add those directly to a card wet. Like, no, I can't do it. So I dry them ahead of time and then pop them off and keep them in this little triangle tray. And then I decided to cut a little bit of foliage from black cardstock and add that in as well, just to add a little bit more balance to the card, a little more contrast, and I really liked the look of that. So here's the finished card. I think using the background feather stamps for leaves was just perfect. They're a great size, not only to create an overall background pattern, which I did in one of my last projects, but also to use as foliage in one of your flower arrangements. I really enjoyed doing a loose watercolor versus the kind of more time-intensive color pencil that I've been doing recently, so that was a lot of fun as well. If you are interested in any of these projects, I'll have them linked down below. The August and the September boxes are still available as of this recording, so be sure to check those out. And if you enjoyed this video, consider hitting that like and subscribe button down below. And if you'd like to be notified of new inspiration from me, then smash that bell button. I really appreciate you guys watching today. Thanks so much for stopping by, and until next time, breathe, ink, inspire.